Are there aspects to your day that you feel as if you're just, checking the box? Do you ever strive to reach out of your comfort zone, become uncomfortable, and level up? Privileged to be your host, this is Jason Wabick. Now, let's uncheck the box. A great day to everybody out there. Once again, this is Jason Wabick, host of the Uncheck the Box podcast, where today we continue our journey together in the quest of being the best versions of ourselves as we can possibly be. Today, we're talking about the 4 stages of learning. Listen, I stumbled upon another podcast where the host kind of went into a little bit more detail on this information that originated back in February of 1969. A gentleman by the name of Martin Broadwell, who was a management trainer, actually, wrote, I don't know if it was a study or if it was a report of some sorts, couldn't tell you the actual publication, but came up with these 4 stages of learning. And I'll tell you what, I found it super fascinating, and so I did a little bit more research on them, and I wanted to share this information with you today. I found this completely applicable, and I also found myself going back in time in my own life and actually coming up with things that I've accomplished by actually following this process and didn't even know it. And so it makes complete sense, especially once you do know and you are aware. And so, again, 4 stages of learning that are going to be super important to realize, okay, what stage am I in and what is it that I need to be doing? So let's go through the stages, and then I want to talk about a couple of examples and then finish up with a couple bullet points, things that we can be cognizant of and good takeaways from today. So stage 1 of learning, it is something that's called unconscious incompetence. Basically, I love the cliche saying, and this sums it up. You don't know what you don't know, right? You have no idea how bad you are at something. You're just unconscious that you are incompetent, right? That you don't know what you're doing. You just have no idea. You are blissfully unaware. This is the stage that's feared the most. However, rarely are we unaware for too long. We pretty quickly come to grips with our consciousness, especially as it gains traction in the importance department. You know, we say things to ourselves, I'm just bad at something, and don't even know why, right? We just know we're bad at it, and that's where, again, we lose consciousness. So that moves us to stage 2. And this is where we start realizing. It is a stage that's called conscious incompetence. I know that I don't know, and I should and want to improve, right? So there's a 2-part there. We know we should improve, and that parlays itself into wanting to improve. But now it is no longer a knowing thing. It is no longer a knowing thing. Now it's a doing thing. If you think you lacked competence, skills, you are already on your way as you know what to do, and now it comes down to doing it. So you already know more than you thought you did. Conscious incompetence. Somebody in this stage, they are aware that they don't know and that they're not doing it. And they recognize the importance, but haven't acquired the ability to do it yet. It's just an awareness right now, everybody. This is not an enjoyable place to be. There is a lot of growth that happens in this space, and it requires a ton of patience and understanding. Again, everybody, this is just an awareness thing. We are now conscious that we are incompetent. Now, it's not a knowing thing. We have to start planning, which leads us to stage 3, which is the conscious competence. This is where we're starting to gain the tools. I know how to do it, but I have to concentrate on the task at hand. We have acquired the skills now, and we know what we have to do. We have to start doing it. take learning how to drive as just an example. When we first started to learn how to drive, the radio was off, 2 hands on the steering wheel, really focused, maybe going a little bit under the speed limit, taking our time, taking the turns, probably in an empty parking lot. But now, as we all drive, most of us drive around, there's a level of almost unconsciousness that we drive. You find yourself, hey, was that a green light? Was that a red light? You don't almost remember going through an intersection. Almost scary, right? But we've all been there. It's like we're on autopilot, right? But when you're learning, you are tuned in to the specific task at hand. Which in that analogy of driving leads us to stage 4, which is unconscious competence. That is that what I mentioned, did I go through that red light? Was it green? You sure it was green? Was it yellow? I can't remember, right? You now can do this task with ease, and it's pretty easy to create good habits because you've found a way to hone in on these skills. You basically, everybody, you're on autopilot. You got this. Now, there was one report that I was reading that there was a bonus stage 5 that came out some time ago after this was introduced. And I kind of liked it. I'm not going to elaborate too much on it, but this was called, follow me on this one. I had to read it a few times. Conscious, unconscious competence. And I like this one because I teach for a living. But this is where you say to yourself, I can explain how I do it with ease to others. So the very thing, like for example, in my case, when I teach sales representatives, I know how to do it, and I do it with relatively high level of unconsciousness. But when I teach it, I have to be conscious about what it is I'm unconscious about. Pretty cool. I really like the whole spin on that, right? So I'm not going to, again, elaborate on that because, it fits my world great about being consciously unconscious on my competency, right? But for you teachers out there, I'm sure you can realize that what comes natural to you and what you do on autopilot, now you're teaching somebody else, and you have to be conscious step by step and teaching them what it is that they have to do. So I really like that one. So let's take an example here. I was reading some different examples we could apply this in life, and you literally can apply these 4 stages to anything that you want to do or get better at. So let's take one that's a little bit more of a way we feel, and negative self-talk. So let's go through the idea of negative self-talk and how we can turn that around and kind of break that down in these stages. So for example, stage 1, maybe you grew up in an environment that was very negative and toxic, right? Nothing you can do about that. It just became part of who you are, right? You might not be aware the fact that you're thinking this way. It's just part of who you are. Again, you're unconsciously incompetent. You don't have the competency to be able to think positively because it just isn't anything that you've ever experienced. But then in stage 2, you now become aware about how destructive this can be. You understand that you can also change. And with changing, you can change the direction in which you're headed. You just don't know how to do it. You don't have the tools yet, but you are now conscious and you are aware of your incompetency. Stage 3 is where we start building the structure, where we start becoming uncomfortable, right? We start putting these things in place. We start gaining the tools. We start hanging around with positive people that serve us and that are here to help us. We start gaining an understanding and see what needs to be done. This requires, my friends, a lot of focus and a super hyper strong awareness. And it's a lot of uncomfortableness. A lot of gunk, a lot of mud, a lot of times, and this is where a lot of times people revert back to what's comfortable. Comfortable. We talked about this many times. It's that stage 3 because it's not fun. No, the not fun part starts in stage 2 when you recognize it that you're incompetent, but then you got to do the work in stage 3, and it just only gets worse and worse. But it does get better, right? It gets worse before it gets better. In stage 4, we've arrived. We are now on autopilot, and the positive thoughts have been hardwired into the way that we think. Now you're in a different headspace, and your thoughts are now there to benefit you. I'm walking proof of that. I shared this on this podcast, how the book Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck really did change the course of my own thought process. And by nature, I was a fixed mindset. So to some degree, maybe still am, but I was able to change my hardwiring. I was able to think a little bit more of a growth mindset now through working at it time and time again about resetting my mindset and changing the way that I think. I can single-handedly tell you that now my default is growth mindset. Why? Because I just worked at it about my response. And when I respond to people and they're like, oh my gosh, he's really positive and upbeat. Well, it didn't happen overnight because by nature, I'm a little bit more of that cautiously, kind of a fixed mindset. Oh, fear of failure, right? Nobody likes that. Nobody wants to fall flat on their face. It takes work. It takes trust and vulnerability to jump into something feet first. So another thing in my personal journey that I've shared also many times is that when I was in sales, I hated making cold calls, hated picking up the phone. I'm a face-to-face person. It was just not something that I was good at. I was, to some degree, unconsciously incompetent to start out because it just wasn't my thing. It just wasn't my jam, right? I just much rather talk to somebody face-to-face, and it wasn't something that I felt that I needed to leverage. I was doing just fine without it. But then stage 2 started to set in when I realized, you know what? I probably should be doing this. I realized that I don't know how to do this. I realized I probably have the ability. It's just nobody really ever taught me. And I took it upon myself to say, you know what? I'm incompetent here, and now I'm conscious about it. I've moved into stage 2. And stage 3 is where I really put in the work. I remember walking around my place of work, right, with this book open, memorizing, closing it, how to navigate a phone call. When somebody picks up the phone, what to say, how to say it, and all of that stuff, right? And I just learned it and learned it and learned it, made phone call after phone call after phone call, until I eventually did arrive in stage 4, where now I'm just unconscious to it. I just do it. And now, everybody, that's why stage 5 is applicable to me. I do teach that now, right? So now I'm the teacher when I'm single-handedly was walking around for so many years in stage 1, had no idea, fought through stage 2 and 3 to now I'm in stage 4 and stage 5. I'm the teacher now. People tell me all the time, they're like, I don't believe you. You didn't like making phone calls, that you weren't good at it. I said, believe me. But it was this progression that I took to make it all worth it. It does work, my friends. Once we're conscious about what it is we need to do, we just got to get to it. So what are some takeaways? What can we do? Stage 1, we can't do anything. I love that. We can't do anything because we don't know what we don't know. We're just unconscious, right? So you can't do anything about stage 1 because you're not aware. Stage 2 is where we start seeking understanding. We're preparing ourselves to be uncomfortable. The uncomfortableness has not set in yet in stage 2. But we are looking to gain awareness and education, and we no longer are ignoring what it is that we need. And then in stage 3, this requires us to take action, and it requires us to be most active when it comes to the effort that we put in. We physically are committed, and we have to lean into tough situations, embrace the uncomfortable, repeat your best practices over and over. You know that saying, practice makes perfect. No, perfect practice makes perfect over and over, time and time again. More good will start to happen than bad. The bad will still be there, but this is where we start to see the pendulum shift to where more good starts to happen. Our confidence starts to raise, and we start to feel good, and we start to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But my friends, we got to remember, it's important in stage 3 that we focus on one thing at a time. Don't try to tackle too much because it's just not physically possible. to change everything all at one time. You have to take it in small doses. So one thing at a time to follow these steps. And then in stage 4, much like stage 1, we have arrived at the unconscious stage. And we are good. There's nothing to focus on because execution's already just automatic. Nothing we have to focus on. Maybe our focus shifts to, something a little bit more minute, right? But the vast majority of what it is we've wanted to learn has already been accomplished. Well, my friends, a lot of good information there. Maybe play this one back again. I hope you took some notes. I learned a ton after I researched these stages and, quite frankly, just how crucial that they are and how important, most importantly, that stage 2 and stage 3 are. Once you become aware, what is it that you're doing? Are you taking action? Are you listening to that voice inside your head? Or are you just suppressing it and walking around in stage 2 and you don't ever become the best version of you? Embrace it, everybody. Try this in many different ways. Again, you can use this in anything in life. You want to start, I was talking to a coworker of mine, said, I've always wanted to play guitar. I said, so start. Who's to say you can't learn how to play the guitar in your 40s? So what? Go learn. Do it. He is now conscious that he's incompetent. Go ahead and do it. It's there for you. Use this practice, and I promise you, I think you just might find you will find a better version of you. So listen, everybody, I appreciate you joining me this week. I appreciate this platform. And as always, I wish nothing but the best for you for the remaining part of the day and an even better part of the week. Awesome, everybody. We will see you next time. Take care, everybody. Appreciate you.